Hi, everyone.
Hello, Councillor Hussain.
Good afternoon.
Okay, are we ready to go?
Hi there, we're live on YouTube.
Okay, thank you very much, Dan. Welcome to this afternoon's Planning and Environmental Protection Committee. I'd like to begin by welcoming those members of the public and press who are watching the live stream of this meeting via the Council's YouTube page. Due to government guidance on social distancing, this meeting is being held remotely. A decision summary and the minutes of the meeting will be produced in the usual way, and a recording of the meeting will be available to view on the Council's YouTube page. To enable the meeting to run in an orderly manner, I would ask all members of the committee to keep their video camera switched on for the duration of the meeting and to keep your microphone muted except when I invite you to speak. Officers will join us to introduce their reports in the usual way. Any members wishing to ask questions or make a comment should indicate this by clicking the raised hand function in the participant screen. This is the blue hand. When I invite you to speak, please unmute your microphone, ask the question and then mute it again to allow the officer to respond. As with all new arrangements, especially those involving new systems, there is always a risk that we may run into technical problems, and I would ask for your patience if we do. Should this occur, I will declare an adjournment while the fault is addressed and the public broadcast will be paused. If it is not possible to address the fault, the meeting may be abandoned until such time as it can be reconvened. I'll begin this meeting by doing a roll call of members of the committee. If members could please confirm their attendance. Councillor Bond.
Present.
Councillor Brown.
Present.
Councillor Casey.
Present.
Councillor Hiller.
Present.
Councillor Hogg.
Present.
Councillor Iqbal.
Present.
Councillor Jamil. I don't think Councillor Jamil's on that one, is he? Actually, I think that's a mistake. Sorry.
Sorry, no, that's me. Sorry.
Councillor Jones.
Present.
Councillor Rush.
Present.
Councillor Warren.
Present.
And myself, Councillor Harper. I think that's everybody. I haven't missed anybody there, have I? Just to make sure.
Yes, you have.
And Councillor Hussain. Sorry, it shouldn't have been. It should have been Councillor Hussain, not Jamil.
Right, lovely. Thank you, Councillor Hussain. Thank you for.
Yes, I'm here.
Thank you. Okay, we also have in attendance Nick Harding, Head of Planning, Stephen Turnbull, Planning Solicitor, Nick Greaves, the Highways Officer, and members of the Democratic Services team. Item 1 then is apologies for absence. Are there any apologies for absence?
Thank you, Chair. We have no apologies for absence.
Thank you very much. Item 2 then is declarations of interest. Councillor Hiller.
Thank you, Chair. I won't be taking part in item 4.3 as the potential confirmation of a TPO at this property will most likely have a direct impact on current application. I have a predisposition to support. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Any other interests? No. Okay, declaration of interest to declaration to make representation as ward councillor. Councillor Casey.
Thank you, Chair. Although I won't be speaking as a ward councillor, I will be speaking on the first item as a parish councillor.
Okay, thank you very much. Anybody else? Councillor Warren.
Just to make everyone aware, on 4.2, I am the ward councillor for Bretton, but I've been predetermined on that application.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? No. No. Okay, we'll move on to item 4.1 relates to Gloucester Centre, Morpeth Close, Orton, Longville. Please can I ask Mr. Harding to introduce the item?
Thank you very much, Chairman. I'll just bring the slides up. Thank you very much. If we go to the next slide, please. This red line drawing shows the extent of the application site. As you can see, it sits adjacent to the parkway, which runs to the sort of left-hand side of the site. You've got residential to the northwest, the north, the east, and to the southeast, you have the industrial area at Wayman Road. Next slide, please. So this shows a satellite photo of the application site edged in red in relation to the surrounding development. The application site is just over 3 hectares in size and is occupied by a number of health-related buildings, some of which are still in use and some are not in use. As you can see from this drawing, this sort of aerial photo, access to the site can currently be obtained via either Morpeth Close or through Wayman Road. Thank you very much. Running along the side of the parkway and into the residential area to the sort of northwest and onward, you've got a cycleway, footway, and that goes over the parkway as well, the Wellingtonia cycleway, and that's going to be unaffected by this development proposal. There may be some need for some minor realignments, but it's otherwise going to be unaffected by these proposals. The site in question is allocated in the adopted local plan for residential development, and in that local plan allocation, it's been identified that it has an indicative capacity of 100 dwellings. The proposal, can you go back, please? That's the one there. So the proposal that we've got before us is an outline planning application. The only matter of detail that permission is being sought is the means of access. So the proposal is in outline for up to 100 homes, and means of access is going to be via Morpeth Close. And in that regard, the current access that leads to and from Wayman Road is proposed to be blocked off. The proposal also includes 30% affordable housing, which is policy compliant. Policy compliant levels of open space provision as well are being put forward. With regard to access, a transport assessment was submitted with the application, and whilst that identified and is acknowledged by the council's highways officers, there are some junctions locally with capacity issues. It's been identified that the amount of traffic that would be generated by the existing use, if it was fully operational, would actually be larger than the amount of traffic that would be generated by 100 homes on this proposed development site. And for that reason, the highways officers don't feel that they could have any justifiable concerns with the traffic impact associated with this development. Another key issue in relation to this development proposal are the trees on site. And you'll see those when we move to the photographs later on in this presentation. Could you go to the next slide, please? So this is a plan that was submitted with the application, and the trees identified as being in red are proposed for removal. as are those trees which have got dotted lines around them in green. So the ARB report was submitted by the applicant. That's been reviewed by the council's own tree officer, and there is disagreement between those two parties in respect of what classification has been given to certain trees. So be that as it may, we have previously had an application in respect of the demolition of these buildings on site, and associated with the consent granted for the demolitions, we have an identification of which trees are going to be protected during that demolition phase. So that's point one to consider. The other point to consider is that we are proposing to proceed with the preparation and surveying of a provisional tree preservation order in order to give protection to those trees that the council's tree officer consider worthy of such protection. So in that way, the council's position regarding the trees that are in disagreement at this planning application stage, our position is going to be protected. And hence we're happy to recommend approval of the application in that context. Another issue for the site is ecology. An ecology survey was undertaken by the applicants. That has been reviewed by the council's own ecologist, or should I say ecologists, as we've had two different people have sight of it. And the only area of concern was in relation to bats on the site. There are a number of buildings on the site which serve as bat roosts. That being said, an acceptable mitigation has been identified, and the council has actually received and approved a mitigation scheme off the back of the consent granted for the demolition of the buildings on the site. That mitigation proposal was prepared by the applicant sort of hand in glove with the Natural England bat licensing arrangement that has to be operated when you're dealing with protected species such as these bats. So we're satisfied that the issue of bats has been addressed appropriately. Turning now to drainage, a drainage strategy was submitted with the application. Our drainage team has looked at that, and we're satisfied that the development can be adequately drained, we're happy to apply appropriate detailed conditions in relation to the exact design of the drainage scheme. As I mentioned earlier, the site does abut the parkway, and with that in mind, the applicant submitted a noise assessment. We needed that to ensure that development within this site could be undertaken in a way which provides for adequate amenity for the occupiers of the proposed dwellings. That's been reviewed by the council's environmental health team and has been demonstrated to be satisfactory as a matter of principle, and so we've got proposed conditions on the consent that would deal with the exact form of mitigation on site. Contamination, contaminated land report was submitted with the application. That's been reviewed by our environmental health colleagues, and there is a small risk of on-site contamination, and the team are happy for a condition to be put on the application so that if any contamination is found during groundworks, that would be satisfactorily dealt with by way of mitigation. And finally, in respect of archaeology, this site has been identified as having some potential for archaeological remains, but given the construction of the parkway, given the construction of the buildings on the site, there's a fair chance that those remains will have been compromised, and therefore the archaeologist for the City Council was content with having some trial trenching work undertaken prior to the commencement of development, and having an archaeological presence on site when groundworks are undertaken, so that any finds can be satisfactorily recorded. So overall, we've got no concerns with the development. It's allocated in the local plan for 100 homes. That's not to be taken as a target or a fixed amount. There may be site constraints on any particular location, which mean fewer houses could be provided on site, but equally sites potentially are capable of having more homes on them than have been identified in the local plan. We're happy to recommend approval of the application. To remind members, it is an outline application for up to 100 homes, and the only matter of detail which is being sought for approval is the means of access. So if we go to the photographs, please. So this is taken from Morpeth Close, looking towards the entrance to the site. You've got Wayneman Road off to the left-hand side, the industrial area. You've got a parkway dead ahead of you beyond the trees in the background. Next slide, please. So this is a reverse view looking at the last property on the right-hand side of Morpeth Close as you enter the site. So behind that chalet bungalow, you've got a street which is made up of single-storey properties which abut the site boundary. Next slide, please. So this is a little bit further up, looking towards Morpeth Close and the commencement of the residential development on there. And on the right-hand side of the slide, you've got the access to and from the Wayman Road industrial site, and the parkway is behind the photographer. Next slide, please. So this is the top of the road going round, parkways on the left-hand side of the slide beyond the trees and hedges. The cycleway is on the left-hand side as well, and you've got the various health authority buildings on the right-hand side. Next slide, please. So progressing down that road, again, parkway on the left, the health authority buildings on the right. Next slide, please. Again, that's sort of coming to the end of that road. We've got a car parking area just to the left of the hedge in the foreground, parkways beyond that, beyond the tree line. Next slide, please. This is looking round the corner with the parkway to the back of the photographer, looking towards the residential development, which is beyond the tree line in the background. Next slide, please. Some more views of the buildings on site, predominantly single story. There are some elements of two-story. Next slide, please. And again, next slide, please. So this is going back to one of the earlier slides. So you've got the parkway to the left-hand side beyond that belt of trees. Next slide. So this is in the bottom, sort of northwest corner of the site. You've got residential development behind the line of conifers. Next slide, please. This is carrying on down that footway cycleway. Those conifers on the previous shot are behind the photographer. Again, showing the relationship between the application site and the adjacent dwellings. Next slide, please. Again, this is a shot with the conifer hedging on that marks the boundary of the site on its eastern side, with the residential development on the other side of the conifer hedges. Next slide. So this is coming back to the entrance of Morpeth Close. The shallow bungalow that you saw in one of the first slides is approximately where the cars are parked on the other side of the fence. And this is another example of the type of boundary treatment you've got between the residential development and the application site. Next slide, please. So again, that's the shallow bungalow that we saw at the start of the presentation. Again, showing the relationship of the site to the adjacent development. Next slide. So that concludes the presentation, Chairman. In terms of the update report, you'll see that there is a neighbour letter that's been written to the MP. We've got statements from the parish council, ward councillors, and also the parish council. And we've had a number of additional representations which have been summarised in the update report since the main committee report was published. There's also some revisions to the conditions in relation to archaeology, trees, and the off-site highway works. So just to recap, Chairman, officers are recommending approval subject to the signing of a 106, and that 106 would deal with the affordable housing to be provided. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Harding. Okay, I have 4 people registered to speak on the item. Firstly, though, I must go to committee and ask if you are content for me to extend the time for councillors to speak to 15 minutes instead of 10. If there's any objection, would you put your hand up, please? Right, no objections. Thank you very much. Please can I therefore invite ward councillors Mohammed Farouk, John Howard and parish councillor Graham Casey. I don't know which order you're going to do it in to address committee. You will have now 15 minutes between you in which to address us. The Democratic Services Officer will let you know when you have 30 seconds left and then when the 15 minutes have elapsed. When you're ready, please unmute your mic and begin.
Good afternoon, Chair. Good afternoon, members. Hopefully we're not going to be taking that long time. I'm going to speak first for a few minutes and then Councillor Howard is going to speak and then Councillor Casey is going to speak on behalf of the Parish Council. So hopefully we shan't be taking too long a period of time. Thank you for giving us this opportunity to speak today on this application. And if I may start, as ward councillors for the above planning application side, we have been overwhelmed by the public interest in our ward on this application. The residents have come forward with many concerns regarding this planning application. Some of these concerns have already been submitted and they're as follows. The size and the scale of the development, the impact on existing infrastructure, the proposed felling of the trees, the impact on existing residents' gardens in Basil Green and the other street, the Morpeth Close, the highway layout, car parking provisions, number of flats in a single building, scale of building, additional traffic on existing roads. Mr. Chair, I would like to point out that us councillors wholeheartedly support the local plan and more housing for the city, but we regard this development in our ward, which is out of character, is very highly dense with the rest of the demographic, and it's a huge burden to local infrastructure. As you probably know from the last council meeting, the new school multiplier, for instance, is per 100 houses, we need 35 to 45 primary places, 23 to 33 secondary places, and 20 to 30 preschool per 100 dwellings. None of that is being taken into consideration for this one. So all those places which will be allocated will have to be created in the existing schools, which are already oversubscribed. Coming back to the highways report, currently, all the traffic which has been going to Gloucester Centre over the last 5 years, 10 years, or whatever period of time is through Wayneman Road. As recommended now by the report that should be closed down, that means all these cars, and for 100 houses, you could assume anything between 150 to 200 cars coming through Morpath Close, Oakley Drive, Morpath Close, or Non-Stickles Road and Morpath Close. So even one car is additional car to those existing residents. So this is additional burden to those current residents, and it will have major impact on their lifestyle. So that's all from me. If I can now pass you to Councillor John Howard, who's going to speak to you about a few of the residents who have sent email just yesterday. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, members. I just wanted to share with you some key points that we've had emailed to us on behalf of residents. There is a big concern with Wayman Road not being suitable for this development, because with 100 houses, it's reasonable to say there could be 200 cars. You've got two key pinch points, 8 in the morning, 5 p.m. with commuting, which is above and beyond any traffic level that the Gloucester Centre has seen, which is more mapped out through the day, even at its peak time, whereas this will be 200 vehicles all wanting to get somewhere at two key points of the day. And the issue with that is that those cars leaving in morning rush hour will add to the congestion that's already on Arundel Road and Shrewsbury Avenue. Thornley Drive, Sheringham and Royston Avenue are currently not wide enough for 2 cars as it is, and the junctions on those roads are very tight too. Morpeth Close is undersized for this number of cars and is already used for on-street parking. And if we did widen it, the residents feel it would undermine the tree roots of a known bat flight path. And the school run to St Boltoff's already is under pressure because Arundel Road is gridlocked. And obviously a theorised extra 200 cars would add to that burden. The residents have also expressed their concern about the trees. They've said that there's the roughly 100 sort of 40-year-old mature trees obviously provide the backbone for a thriving biodiverse mix of bats, birds and insects. In credit to the plan, there is obviously some protection there for trees during the demolition report, but the residents are very concerned that when it comes to actually doing a development, the proposal could change again with some of those trees to be felled after. So there is a great worry that the current plan is only for the demolition and not the next phase, which would obviously be the construction. And there is concern about the bats, which again, this is from the residents, so I would stand to be corrected on this if this is wrong. But they've said they are concerned that the proposed bat boxes are only 1.5 metres off the ground, whereas ideally it should be 2 metres off the ground. Again, this is from the residents, so I would stand corrected if that is incorrect. But that is their feedback on that. And I think the overriding concern is the pressure on the local area, especially cutting down to one road in and out, will be very pressurised for the local community. And that's it from me. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Case, are you coming in now?
Yep. Good afternoon, members. Good afternoon, Chair. I speak this afternoon on behalf of Orton Longville Parish Council, who themselves have received many representations from residents in the area. Following the publication of today's papers, the Parish Council have asked me to make the following observations. Firstly, the closure of Wayman Road, of the Wayman Road access, represents a material change to the plans that were consulted upon in the local plan, effectively halving the access routes to the development. We would therefore suggest that the upper limit of 100 units needs revision. This could solve a number of issues, including the tree officer's objections, which would currently appear to be insurmountable. The impact of increase in vehicles has not been established. A comprehensive highway network impact assessment has not been carried out, especially with regard to Royston Avenue, Hillwood Close, Latham Avenue, Sheringham Way and Thornley Drive. These roads are extremely congested at peak times during term time. They're regularly used as rat runs and suffer as a result from accelerated wear and tear. This can be seen particularly at the junction of Sheringham Way and Thornley Drive. The proposal constitutes an undesirable intensification of residential development at a density which would be out of keeping and incompatible with existing developments in the locality. The parish council has grave concerns over loss of green space and natural habitat. We note that the latter is not fully resolved. And as an aside, I've never seen such a critical tree officer's report. The proposal contains sizable high-storey buildings that do not meet any identified local needs for blocks of apartments. The council believes that the design, including bulk and massing, is ugly, overbearing, out of scale, and out of character in terms of its appearance compared to existing built environment and other developments in the vicinity. Local opinion, as you can see from the report that we've all received, is hugely against the development of 100 units, but we note that a scaling down in numbers is still possible. The loss of existing views from neighbours' properties would adversely affect the residential amenity of neighbouring occupiers. Traffic and parking are already an issue in the area. And finally, residents state that development would adversely affect highway safety and the convenience of road users. The council do not accept, this is the parish council, do not accept the technical evidence for closing Wayman Road or the rationale for not undertaking a more relevant and contemporaneous post-COVID road surveys at the Royston Avenue junction. And we find it surprising that any expert can say that the development would not have any additional impact on the surrounding road networks.
Okay, thank you very much.
Presentation.
Thank you, Councillor Casey. Okay, any questions from members to any of the councillors, please? Councillor Rush.
Thank you, Chair. Question to Councillor Farouk. I think you said in your presentation that just one car would be an additional vehicle to go down Morpeth Way. Is that correct?
Yes, I did, Brian. And my assumption was purely based on that all the previous traffic was always coming through Wayman Road, which was commercial traffic going into commercial offices.
So that's my next question is, so are you saying then that all the vehicles that used to access the Gloucester Centre would come through Wayman Road and not through Oakley and Morpeth Way?
Yes, I believe that, and that's what I've been told by the residents, and that's what I know. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, can I just come in as well, please? There's just on the same.
You could have put your hand a bit. Yes, Councillor Casey.
Sorry. I would say that there is a signpost on Shrewsbury Avenue that does actually point to the access to Gloucester Centre, and it is specifically signposted through Wayman Road, and has been the case for, well, 28 years that I've lived in the area.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else got any questions for the councillors at all? No. Okay, thank you very much, councillors. Okay, could I now invite Paul Rowland, the agent, to address the committee? Paul, are you there?
I am here, yes. Can you hear me?
Paul. Yes, Paul. Welcome, Paul. You'll have 5 minutes to address committee. The Democratic Services Officer will let you know when you have 30 seconds left and your 5 minutes have elapsed. When you're ready, please unmute your mic and begin.
I think I'm unmuted. I can't.
Yes,
I can't
fine.
see that I'm displayed anywhere, but I assume you can see me.
Yes, you're on.
Very good. This should take about 4.5 minutes if my timing is right. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today on behalf of my client, Homes England. The Gloucester Centre was identified as surplus to requirements by NHS England and sold to Homes England, who act on behalf of government in such situations to ensure best value is obtained when government assets are disposed of. Homes England are pleased to be able to bring forward the proposed residential development in accordance with your council's allocation of the site in its local plan for up to 100 dwellings. Homes England will in due course dispose of the site on the open market and so have chosen to pursue an outline application in order to be able to market the site with as much certainty for the purchaser as to the likely value of the development opportunity as possible. In order to satisfy your officers that the estimated number of dwellings is reasonable, and despite the fact that my client only seeks outline permission, we have submitted an illustrative master plan to provide comfort about the capacity of the site. The master plan follows and incorporates all the matters raised through the pre-application process, including up to 100 dwellings, provision of affordable housing at 30%, ability to comply with highways and parking standards, sustainable drainage and ecology issues. Our proposals include off-site mitigation of open space requirements as requested by the council, and we've proposed the closure of Wainman Road at the request of your highway authority. In regard to the retention of trees on the site, our client agrees with the thrust of your policy that trees should be retained wherever possible. There has been a degree of professional difference between our tree advice and that of your tree officer concerning the value to be ascribed to some of the existing trees. Even so, the principal reason for failure to reach absolute agreement is because this application is made in outline. We've done our best to show how few trees need to be affected by the illustrative plan, but your tree officer holds the position that he should not agree to the felling of any trees until the proof is there based on a fully detailed proposal to possibly justify it. I would like therefore to stress to you, as set out in your officer's report, that the objection is as much one about timing as merits. This application does not seek the approval of any tree felling, and with the exception of tree felling to enable demolition, which has already been approved by your council, no felling will take place until it's agreed through negotiation and agreement of a detailed scheme. And your report includes a proposed recommendation for a condition to ensure this. In regards to ecology, we've liaised closely with Natural England, both in terms of the site evaluation and monitoring and the proposed mitigation measures. Although a European protected species licence will be required, we cannot apply for this too far in advance of having all the other necessary permissions in place. Homes England have made applications for and received necessary approvals for demolition of the buildings, erection of a new purpose-built bat barn, and other pole-mounted roosting boxes. Upon receipt of outline permission for this application, it's Homes England's intention to commence construction of the bat barn and pole-mounted boxes and apply for the EPS licence prior to proceeding with the approved scheme of demolition. By this means, it can be seen that the requirement for mitigation will have been achieved before the land is passed to the eventual housing developer. Finally, in relation to the widespread concerns and objections from local residents and representatives, I would point to the individual responses to those matters in your officer's report. Particularly in regard to the level of traffic congestion on the local road network, I'd reaffirm the view arrived at by our highway consultant and the highway authority that the proposed residential development will result in a net reduction in local traffic, and that any pre-existing issues can't be expected to be addressed or resolved by the development proposed in this application. In regards to concerns about the availability of social infrastructure to meet the demands from more housing, as your office has explained, the council has a strategic role through community infrastructure levy and with partners dealing with education, health and social care to expand services to match overall planned growth in the size of the community. I would just say that in terms of the traffic, what your highways officers decided was that the impact on local junctions would be below the minimum thresholds for national guidance, and therefore they wouldn't request either further survey work or testing. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Paul. Okay, members, do you have any questions, please? Councillor Hogg.
Yeah, just in regards to the traffic situation. First of all, I believe that the centre is it's an NHS site, which maybe is not as used as it was. But even taking the traffic flow when it was fully utilised, presumably the traffic was more tapered throughout the day rather than, as was previously been said, first thing in the morning and last thing at night, the 5 o'clock, the two rush hours, as it were. Has that been taken into consideration? And secondly, the fact that there was two exits out of the site, and now it's all going to be funneled through one exit. Do you have a comment on that?
Well, I do. I think you're right that in terms of the amount of use of the facility in recent years, that's been tapering off. So what you're seeing now is less than has been in the past. In terms of traffic generation and the flow in and out, that is something that was taken into account in the highway officer's assessment and in your own highway authority's assessments as well. And it was that actually that I was just quoting in regards to minimum thresholds for increases on junctions not having been reached. So I think that in the calculations there will have been a recognition that there might be increases on particular parts of the network in particular times of the day, but those impacts were so small compared to what's already there that it wouldn't justify the highway authority looking further at it. I don't have, and I don't know if anybody has, detailed information about whether people turned left or went straight on as they left the site during the day, and therefore how much traffic might have used Wainwright Road in the past. But all I can say about it is the highway authority asked our development team to design a scheme around the closure of Wainman Road, and that's what we've done.
Thank you.
Anybody else? No further questions. Thank you, Mr. Ireland.
Thank you very much.
Okay. We'll now move on to questions of officers or the legal team. Councillor Hogg, you got your hand up still? Is it you first?
So it was still up, but I have got a question. So I just wanted to ask the officers if they could comment on the comments from councillors in terms of the school provisions for 100 houses.
Through you, Chairman, happy to answer that question. This application, given that it's only for a scheme of up to 100 homes, is subject to the council's CIL policy, Community Infrastructure Levy, and therefore there is a standardised fixed amount of money that we receive from developers depending upon the floor space of the dwellings which are being provided, and that's enshrined in the council's adopted CIL policy. And that's the method that we would collect money which can be spent, amongst other things, on the expansion of existing school facilities.
Yeah, so I understand that, but the point is this, is that having money from the development that could be used for increasing school spaces does not necessarily mean that it will be used or is able to be used, because the capacity of the current schools, they have no more capacity, or even if you were to build them another classroom, that they just haven't got the infrastructure on site to be able to handle more classrooms. So the question is it possible to increase the school provision in the area to make up for the likely demand that this site is going to provide?
Through you, Chairman, that specific issue has not been looked at and wouldn't be looked at because we have the CIL policy in place. The policy that we have in place has acknowledged that it has both its strengths and its weaknesses, and we accept that the way that we manage this thing is to collect the money and find a way of expanding schools in the appropriate locations and to meet any unmet needs. And that's the way that we've done it in the era of CIL and also pre-CIL, when we were just collecting the money through Section 106 agreements. So that what we will be doing is, if there is no local capacity and that local capacity can't be increased in the immediate vicinity, then we would sort of go outwards to find the next best location that is capable of expansion, if indeed it does need expansion.
Okay, Councillor Hiller, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just a quick question for Mr. Harding. I'm interested in the density of the development, the fact that it's been allocated in the approved local plan for up to 100 dwellings aside. A few of the objectors and the ward councillors mentioned about the unacceptable density. What in planning terms, what is the norm or the acceptable number of dwellings per hectare, for argument's sake?
Through you, Chairman, normally sort of a rule of thumb for density on a typical suburban residential development would be approximately 35 dwellings to the hectare, and this is a site which is 3.2 hectares in size, and therefore the proposed 100 dwellings is more or less in line with that 35 dwellings per hectare rule of thumb density.
Thank you, Mr. Harding. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Okay, fine. Councillor Iqbal, please.
Thank you, Chair, and through you. My question is to the highway. Now, what I've noted that the councillors and the local residents have a concern about the highway. And Paul, in his presentation, states that the Highway Authority said no further inspection or survey is required. I would like the highway to comment on that, considering that this is a major concern raised by the local residents and the councils, and how the highway have come to this conclusion. I'd just like to have their comment on that, please. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, through you, Chair. That sort of stance was sort of agreed after a sort of thorough assessment of the sort of transport assessment that was provided by the applicant. We reviewed this in detail, and it was, the overall traffic movements, as it's sort of been mentioned previously, is much reduced coming forward as housing as it would be, as it is right now, basically. So that's the reason why that's the reason for our stance on this.
Can I come back on that, please, Nick? What about the fact that it's been mentioned, and quite rightly, and I can understand it, that it's been said, and I have no doubt, because seeing the signs of that majority of traffic that went to the Gloucester Centre to and from went via Wayman Road and not via the actual inner estate roads. That's now changed, so they can't, or they won't, if this gets through. So they will all have to come down through Morpeth Close and back in. And they won't be like perhaps with Gloucester Centre staggered throughout the day. They'll be more like there will be rush hours, which has been mentioned by councillors. There'll be times when people go to work and come back from work. So has that analysis been done, that it's different? It's not the same. It's not like you've made the comparison that the Gloucester Centre is already like this. But while there might be less cars, if that's the right word, less vehicles, they are more bunched up, or they're more likely to be more bunched up. What would be your comment on that?
That would have formed part of the sort of projections and the trip rates provided by the applicant. So that was assessed, and even after that was taken into account, it's within the acceptable limits, and still would represent a reduction.
Okay, thank you, Nick. Thank you. Right, anybody got any other questions for officers at all? No more. Okay. Oh, sorry, Councillor Iqbal. So your hand's gone up.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to come back to the highway again. In response to my question, you said you were relying on the report that was presented by the applicant. Are you saying that the report that was presented by them is fit for purpose? I mean, Is that complete? There's no further action required?
Yes, it was. Am I unmuted? Yes, so that report was reviewed by our sort of transport assessment engineers and was deemed acceptable. Yes.
Okay, Councillor Iqbal, do you want to come back? No, Councillor Hogg then.
Just to be clear, so the assessment that they provided, was that done using the monitoring of traffic levels, or was it done just using a model?
Sorry, I'm unmuted. You'll have to forgive me on this one, but this case has been handed to a couple of case officers since it came forward, so I don't have that information to hand. But from what I've reviewed on the case history and everything, I'm confident in what the assessment that's been carried out.
Councillor Iqbal.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'd like to come back in again. If I could remember, when the Mosque Committee presented a survey report, and it was like a general report, and what the council was saying that they wanted the report to comment on specific points. So my question to the highway is, the report assessment that was given to you, was that actually highlighting the issues that the local residents had raised? Was it addressing those issues in the report, or was it just a general report, just a tick box exercise?
Yeah, thank you. So these things are sort of never treated as a tick box exercise, and we've gone through pre-app with the applicant and highlighted the issues that we're aware of and that have been raised. Again, I can only sort of reassure that we're confident in what's been provided and has been represented in the report that we've our response and is detailed in the committee report, where we sort of reiterate that the development is in within acceptable tolerances. Again, so I only apologise. I can't really comment on the specifics, but I can only reiterate that we're content with the impact. I hope that's.
Councillor Hiller.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. And leading on pretty much from the questions, I think, from Councillor Iqbal about the highways, the agent, Mr. Rowland, specifically said, and I have to say pointedly said, that we had insisted on the closing of, is it Wainwright Road, the road that comes through the industrial estate? Just tell me why that was insisted upon. You may not know, but Nick Harding may be able to tell.
Well, Nick has his hand up anyway, so Nick, if you would please.
Through you, Chairman. I was going to answer the question with regard to how the traffic data produced by the applicant was arrived at. And on page 45 of your report, it says that the information was obtained by traffic surveys undertaken at the end of June 2018.
Okay.
So I'm not sure whether or not Mr. Greaves wants to answer the question that's just come up with regard to why Wayman Road was requested for closure by the highways team.
Okay, Nick.
Now again, the reasoning that I can provide is that what was cited in our initial response was safety concerns. But I can't find any further detail on that from the case officer at the time. So I can't really comment anything other than safety concerns.
If I could add to that, Chairman, I think the highways officer was concerned about an additional level of what I'll call domestic traffic passing through an industrial area where you've got HGV movements, there's no footways, so on and so forth in that area, and you've got turning vehicles, the visibility on some of the corners isn't great, things like that. I think that was the sort of general reasoning behind the recommendation for the closure of Wayneman Road.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, I have to say I suspected that might be the case, but I just wanted that confirmed. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. Anybody else? Any more questions? No, okay then. So we're going to move then on to debate. So who would like to start the debate on this one, please? Councillor Jones. No? Yes?
Thank you, Chair. Not so much a question, it's really just a comment. It struck me today when we visited the centre the highways people, the proof of the pudding will be in the eating, and a lot of the algorithm or the rubric that's used in order to assess this, a lot of it is dependent on the timing of when it's done. And, we're going to have to suck it and see as far as the amounts of traffic going through. The only thing is in principle, which is what we're trying to agree today, I haven't got a problem, but I don't live there. And I'm just thinking about the issues that are around there. And, I'm hoping that highways, with whichever, say, algorithm that they use, is going to be sufficient, because that road, Morpeth Close, doesn't look terribly wide, but I can understand the decision now to cut off Wayneman Road. And the only thing the other thing that springs to mind is just the sheer volume of traffic that might be going through there. We just have to really hope that the development is in keeping with the amount of traffic that it's likely to generate. That's my feeling on it.
Thank you. Councillor Hiller.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'm listening very closely to both ward councillors as well as Councillor Casey representing the parish and indeed the agent, Mr. Rowland. And I think the site visit this morning was very, very useful, and it gave me a real feel for the area, gave me a real feel for the size of this plot, for want of a better word, site, and the access. And I think Mr. Harding's address was very informative too. I think what we have to bear in mind is the site has been allocated in the approved local plan for up to 100 units. That's a fact. The plan was approved recently, our local plan, members will be aware of that, and it was consulted upon at the time over a lengthy period publicly and very widely. The application that we have before us is an outline application, we're all aware of that, and the only thing really that we're deciding in detail, of course, is the access, and that point has been made very well. We've got no substantive objections from Archaeology, pollution team at the council, highways are on board, as we've heard, travel choice, strategic housing team, local drainage authority officers, waste management, et al. And it goes on and on. Even the environmental health teams are okay with this, as are the police, architectural liaison officer, environment agency, etc., etc. The tree officers' objections, I think, are something I'm particularly conscious of, but I think Mr. Harding has sated my curiosity there by saying that there is a proposal, and it's a firm proposal, I'm sure, to place TPOs on perhaps the more significant trees in question, certainly the ones cited by the tree officer. Let's not forget, members, the creation of nearly 2 acres of public space on this development is being proposed. Nearly 2 acres, that's a lot of public space. And I know some members are particularly concerned about the provision of public space in the more urban areas. 30% affordable housing. It's been cited by some of the objectors that this is social housing, and it's been objected to. Quite what's wrong with social housing, I'm not sure. There's quite a fair bit of social housing in my rural wards, conservation villages, and it's a great benefit to many families. But this isn't social housing, it's affordable housing. And it's great that we are able potentially to provide those first and second rungs on the housing ladder for younger people and families to get into their own properties and have roofs over their head. I'm sure we can all agree with that. We've been advised that the traffic levels are going to be similar to the potential use of what's there already, probably even less. And I suggest that the traffic survey that was done, if that was done, as we've been told 2.5 years ago, the use of the Gloucester Centre would have been far more intense than it is now. So I'm not swayed by the lack of vehicles this morning. I mean, we're talking about traffic levels 2.5 years ago. I also note in the reports, the parish council are aghast, quote unquote, that the application has been submitted by Peterborough City Council during a lockdown. The applicant is Homes England. It's not Peterborough City Council. So, you know, as a council, you've got no control whatsoever when the application is being submitted, and they've gone through a pre-application process as well, as you might expect. The objectors cite the density of the proposal being like a toothpaste tube. I think it was mentioned, squeezed so tightly together, hence my question to Mr. Harding. Even at its maximum for the allocated units on this site, it's actually less than what's considered normal or acceptable in planning terms for the amount of dwellings per hectare. Please let's bear that in mind. Also, finally, sorry to go on, but it's an important application. I think we do need to discuss this, Chair. It's an outline application, so the final layout will be submitted as an element of the Reserve Matters application. This is just the principle of the development and the access, as we've been told, with an indicative of layout. Completely understand the conscientious ward councillors doing what they consider is right and proper in supporting the residents who are making the objections. I would do exactly the same. But those objections have to be made adhering to sound and planning policy. It's got to be in the domain of planning policy. The site was allocated for housing in the current, recently approved, adopted local plan, and it was adopted by all political parties at full council. Please let's bear that in mind. I'm supportive of this application, Chair. Thank you. Sorry to have gone on, but I thought it was important things that I needed to say.
Thank you, Councillor Hiller. Councillor Hogg.
Okay, so I have a number of concerns with this development. I feel uneasy about the fact that the routes out of the estate are being halved, and so therefore there is an element of it's funneling all of the traffic down Morpeth, which I think is probably technically capable of dealing with that level of traffic, but it is a huge, I think it will be a huge increase in the usage that it's ever seen before, because of the fact that the other route out of the estate will have been closed. I'm also very concerned, I kind of know the area relatively well. There are at rush hour time down Royston Avenue, Sheringham, it's used as a bit of a rat run, and this is going to be adding quite a few cars to that rat run for people trying to access Oundle Road, especially as the nearest schools are off Oundle Road that would basically take on the children of this estate. It's going to be a new estate. It's going to be full of families. And I share the concerns about school place provision. I understand we've got the SIL policy that puts money into a pot to try and adjust these things. But I am concerned that we haven't kind of done an assessment as to whether or not the schools that we have in that area are in fact able to increase the size of their provision to meet that demand, money aside or not. Because there is, going to be a finite size for any school, other than, as we had before with the Jubilee pub, unless there's more land to one side of the school that they're able to expand into. So I have concerns about that. I'm not entirely sure that the site is, the type of homes that they're putting on there, maybe there should be another use for the site. I understand that it's gone through it's in the local plan, and I have questions as to whether or not local representatives should have made representations at the time that the local plan was put forward to say, you know, are we sure that this is something that should be built here, rather than waiting for it to come to this planning committee. So yes, I have some grave concerns about the number of housing and the type of housing that we're talking about in terms of the pressure that it will put onto schools.
Thank you, Councillor Hogg. Anybody else want to enter the debate on this one? Councillor Rush.
Yes, I was going to say a few things that Councillor Hillier said. You just got to remember, this is not a Peterborough City Council application, it's Homes England. It's in the allocation plan. I can understand the residents' fears of more traffic on Morpeth Way. The blocking off of Wayman Road in the report says it's for safety reasons. And also everybody keeps saying put extra traffic onto Elmdale Road, but not all traffic has to go that way. It can go the other way up to the roundabout and up onto the Parkway or down Celta Road. So I understand the feelings of the residents who live there. The ward councillors who put in a good representation for their constituents. So that's my feeling. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rush. Councillor Iqbal.
Thank you, and through you, Chair. Firstly, I think I will say that Councillor Hiller has given a very good overview. I think he's touched on all the issues, which are the real issues. However, the real issue that is striking me is the highway. And what I have to say to that is that I've raised a question. Officers were given an opportunity to explain. We've got an assessment which they are going by, and according to their expertise, the assessment is fit for purpose. So unfortunately, I think they've addressed that issue, and I won't be having any concerns on that. I am minded at this stage to go in support with the officer's recommendation, unless anybody else comes up with something else.
Anybody else wish to enter the debate, please? Okay. Nobody else? No. Then I'm going to ask if anybody has a proposal, please. Councillor Hiller.
Yeah, thank you, Chair, for the opportunity, and thank you for allowing the debate. I think some interesting and very valid points have been raised. My proposal, Chair, and unsurprisingly perhaps, is that we support the officers on this application. Thank you, Councillor Iqbal. I understand, you know, you're saying I've covered all the points. Yes, I think I've thought about it long and hard, and there are obviously fears, there are concerns, as is any local neighbourhood view of collective view of a development like this. But I think our officers have done a very capable job on this. I've read, reread and reread the report. My concern in particular was not just the highways, but that is a concern, but I think what our highways officers said is satisfies me. The trees, and I think what Mr. Harding said in his address about the TPO imposition on those trees at reserve matters application, and I think, you know, just to stress, this is an outline application, members, rather than reserve matters, and a lot can be decided at reserve matters stage. So I'm supporting the application. That's my proposal, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have a seconder? Is that Councillor Iqbal?
Yes, Chair, I'm happy to second that the scheme. It's an application in principle, and I don't see it's going to cause any harm. We're going to have a further application, which a substantial application will have a further opportunity to comment on it. So I'm happy to second it.
Thank you, Councillor Iqbal. Okay, committee, we have a proposal and we've had it seconded. So we will now move to the vote. For clarity, I'll ask each member in turn if they are for, against or abstaining. Councillor Bond.
For.
Councillor Brown.
For.
Councillor Casey. You can't vote, can you? Of course you can't. Councillor Hiller.
For.
Councillor Hogg.
Abstain.
Councillor Iqbal.
For.
Councillor Hussain.
For.
Councillor Jones.
For.
Councillor Rush.
For.
Councillor Warren.
For.
And myself, Councillor Harper, I am for too. Okay, Karen, if you could please, let's have the result.
Thank you, Chair. We have 9 for and 1 abstention.
Okay, in that case, the outline application is approved. Thank you very much. Okay, we'll move straight on to the next item, which is item 4.2, and relates to 85 Outfield Bretton in Peterborough. Mr. Harding, when you're ready, if you could please introduce the application.
If we could have the presentation, please.
Yes, just working on that.
Application is approved. Thank you very much. Okay, we'll move straight on to the next item, which is item 4.2.
Thank you very much, Chairman. If we could move to the next slide, please. So the red line drawing on the screen in front of you shows the extent of the application site. The area of open space, which forms part of this proposal, which is proposed to be changed into residential use, is the area edged in red, but sort of hatched in a red shading as well. So as you can see, the application site is the end terrace property, number 85, and that property currently abuts an area of landscaped open space area, and there's a car park which lays beyond. As well as the change of use of land to residential, the proposal includes a single-storey side extension to the terraced property, and that's going to provide a downstairs ensuite bedroom, a utility room, and also a playroom. And I'll show you that on one of the subsequent slides. Do we move on to the next slide, please? So this is a Google Earth image showing the end terrace property in question. You've got the area of landscaped area of open space and the car park beyond, and where you've got the red circle, that's roughly speaking the location of the proposal. Next slide, please. So that's a close-up showing the extent of the application site with the area to be used by the extension hatched in red. Next slide, please. And this is the proposed extension. So that's on the right-hand side, edged in red. So you've got the playroom, you've got a utility room, and the downstairs bedroom with ensuite facilities. Next slide, please. The first floor is unchanged. There's no layout changes, just that one of the bedrooms is going to be used as a study instead of a bedroom. That doesn't require planning consent. So here we have the proposed elevations. So if you're standing in the car park area, which is on the far side of the landscaped open space area, you're looking at the side elevation of the property, which is the bottom picture on your screen. And then, could you go back to the previous slide? Yeah. And then the rear elevation is on the top right-hand side, and that's what you'll see in the next picture of the sort of actual street scene. So could we move to that, please? So that's the application property in question, and the extension would be to the right-hand side of that on part of the landscaped open space area. Next slide, please. So again, this is a photograph taken from the car park looking at the side elevation, showing the extent of the application site. What you see also just to the front of this silver car is the tree, which is a category B tree, which would be adversely affected by the development proposal. Pruning works would be required to the tree in the first instance because it would be overhanging the property, and obviously there'd be ongoing pressure for works or potentially at worst the removal of the tree because of its impact on the extension of the property. I think that's the last slide. It is, yeah. So as I said, it's a twofold proposal. So it's the change of use of land to residential use, and also a single-storey side extension to number 85. The extension you saw from the proposal goes for essentially the full depth of the property. It's single-storey in height. At its maximum height, it's 16.5 metres to the ridge, 5.5 metres. 2.5 metres to the eaves. So we've got no concerns over the physical appearance of the extension itself. However, we are recommending refusal for 3 reasons. So first of all, we've got the impact of the development proposal on the category B tree. Secondly, we've got the loss of the open space. And thirdly, we've got the loss of open space and the physical construction of the extension would have on the appearance of the immediate area. So you've got the loss of the buffer planting that you saw in the slides, the reduced usability of the open space, and the proposed extent of the development and the area to be moved over into residential use would result in a sort of an awkward sort of boundary line arrangement around a part of that open space landscape area. Subsequent to the writing of the report, the applicant has identified that some of the occupants of the property have health issues and that the proposal would benefit from the proposal. Having considered this, officers feel, and that's having considered it under the auspices of the Equalities Act, that the health issues of the occupants are not so significant as to outweigh the harm that this development proposal would have. Hence, we're staying with the recommendation that's before you. As you've seen from my report, as you've seen from the applicant's representation letter, this is an application which hasn't run smoothly at all. And I have given my apologies to the applicant for that. I did say that if we were to move towards a recommendation as officers towards a refusal, we would bring the application for committee consideration so that the applicant would have an opportunity to address you and persuade you that the right thing to do is to approve the application rather than refuse it, and I've honoured that promise. Also, as background and not relevant to the making of a decision on this application, is that the process that the applicant has had to go through in terms of making the application through the council's property team to try and acquire this land through to this application process. It's not been a good process, and I think it could do some re-engineering to iron out some of the wrinkles that this particular applicant has come across, and we as officers of the council have come across, because it's made life very difficult for the applicant as well as ourselves as officers. So that's some background information rather than something that needs to be considered by yourselves in the consideration of this particular application. In terms of updates, you'll see that we've had some additional information from the ward councillor, from the applicants themselves, and also there's some confidential information that the applicant has submitted, and that's been circulated to you previously. So I'll end there, Chairman. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Harding. Okay, we have 2 people registered to speak. Please, could I firstly invite the ward councillor, Chris Burbidge, to address the committee. Hi, Chris, are you there?
Hi, thank you, Chair.
Hold on a second, Chris. Just got some things to tell you about. You'll have 10 minutes to address committee when you're ready. The Democratic Service Officer will let you know when you have 30 seconds left and when your 10 minutes have lapsed. When you're ready, please unmute your mic and proceed.
Thank you, Chair. And I will keep this very brief, because obviously you've had statements from myself and from Mr. Dimji regarding this, and obviously all the background for it. Speaking as a ward councillor, 85 Outfield is a typical 1970s end of terrace development corporation house. It's been the family home for Mr. Dimji for nearly 40 years. The plot of land that is in question here is nothing more than a small corner piece of bushes and grass. It's not used for any recreational purpose and is a regular dumping ground for people's litter, which Mr. Dimji kindly cleans himself quite often to try and keep his home and his surrounds clear. If not, it falls to the cost of employed parish council litter pickers. At the start of this process, which was almost 2 years ago now, Mr. Dimji had agreed a price and was in the process of purchasing this, a small part of this land for the proposed development and the extension. Mr. Dimji is going to outline a little further to you, so I'll just leave it there and say that with your support, Mr. Dimji can finalise this purchase of land, build the extension to his property that he needs, and will make his home suitable for purpose to provide for his family's needs now and into the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Burbidge. Councillors, have any questions? Sorry, members. Councillor Hiller.
Yeah, just a quick question for Councillor Burbidge. I'm looking at the site plan on the report pack and it delineated in red. Is that the extent of the land that your resident wishes to purchase? I understand that the purchase of the land per se is not a relevant consideration, but there seems to be a slightly odd-shaped green area with an element, an oblong of red attached to it. Is that the total extent of the land that is looking to be purchased? It might be Mr. Harding that answers later, but I'm just wondering if you knew, Councillor Burbidge.
Thank you, Councillor, and through you, Chair. To the best of my knowledge, yes, that is all that he's asking to purchase. The pure intention is just to extend the boundary a little further to take in some additional playing space for his son and for the extension, for the ground floor extension to take place.
Okay, and do you have any idea, as a follow-on, if I might, Chair, what sort of boundary treatment your constituent wishes to put?
I don't know.
That's fine. Thank you, Councillor Burbidge.
Councillor Burbidge, could I ask, if, as Councillor has just brought up and looking at the picture, you've got only part of that corner plot as such that he wishes to, Mr. Dimji wishes to purchase and build on, and you did mention about building up of litter and fly tipping. Have we not just, well, is it not just still there, but just further across? I mean, it's not gone, is it? I'm just wondering what your views on that, because you've still got a chunk of land sticking out the side there, so it hasn't got away.
No, it hasn't. But I think that with the extension of the property and the boundary fence, where that corner plot of land is, it's quite often used as a bit of a shortcut across to a shortcut for people to go across, rather than following the path to save themselves another 20 metres worth of walking. So with the property being maintained by Mr. Damji, once the extension is in place, I think that would reduce the problems that we have on that corner. It'd certainly be a little less easier to cut corners, and that's where a lot of your litter comes from.
Okay, thank you very much. Anybody else got any questions at all for Councillor Burbidge? No? Thank you, Councillor. Okay, if I could now, I'd like to invite Mr. Sibtain Damji to address committee. Hello, Mr. Damji, I hope you're there.
Hello.
Hello, Mr. Damji. You have 5 minutes when you're ready to address committee. The Democratic Service Officer will let you know when you have 30 seconds left and when your 5 minutes have lapsed. When you're ready, please unmute your mic and go ahead.
Super, thank you very much. So good afternoon, Chairman, Councillors and the Peterborough City Council officers. Through you, Chair, I would like to thank you all for giving me an opportunity for me to explain the rationale in submitting my application. I'm sure you would have read the statement I submitted on Monday, the 7th of December. I won't repeat what's in the statement. However, I would like to bring to your attention a few key points from the statement itself and the purpose of the proposed application. Number one, to date, I have not received a letter from the council for an extension to the application which was submitted back in July 2020. And here we are sitting about 23 weeks after the application was submitted with no decision made. Number two, several case officers were assigned to the application, all with different opinions when they all work up the same policies. The first officer was preparing the report to recommend for approval. Unfortunately, he left the council. I understood the second officer also left the council. We are now here discussing the fate of the application with the third case officer in charge. Number three, on Thursday, the 10th of December 2020, a few days ago, I received an email from Mr. Harding inquiring about the health conditions of my son and my mum. Mr. Harding inquired in his email about the status of them so that the appropriate consideration can be offered in deliberation of the application. I would like to make a point of reference here that the conditions of my family members were not asked in the householder's planning application. Number four, as a citizen of Peterborough, I have followed the correct process and procedures that were laid in front of me and have been following the guidance given to me by Peterborough City Council's property and legal team. Number five, I believe that both Peterborough City Council's property team and legal team went through the processes of consultations and approvals before the land was offered to me for sale. Number six, the proposal covers the majority of land with hedgerow against my gable wall. May I point out that the hedgerow is hardly maintained and the pictures posted on my report were taken at the time of the survey for the planning application. They show that they were overgrown and hardly maintained. Mr. Harding's report does state that space is important as it softens the landscape. The area covered by the extension amounts to 89 square metres approximately, compared to the total area of 322 square metres of green space. The majority of the 89 square metres is covered in hedgerow and a den for antisocial activities. Number seven, the tree officer's report on the 14th of July 2020 shows the officer acknowledged that this land was public open space. However, did not mention his objection in his statement, but requested a tree survey to be complete. Then on the 26th of November 2020, around 19 days ago, I would also like to make a point of reference here that the title of the planning application was also changed. On this statement, the tree officer objects on the basis that this is public open space and about the tree, which is a complete change in narrative from his first statement. Number eight, throughout this whole application process, there seems to be many inconsistencies, all within the Peterborough City Council department. In summary, there are only two main objectives for the proposed development and are very close to my heart. Number one, future-proofing our home to ensure that it caters for my mother and her needs. This is going to be inevitable in the years to come, and instead of relying on the council's adult social services to fund these changes, I wanted to take it upon myself to meet the needs of my family. The adult social services had several years ago carried out an assessment after the doctors made a referral. They then installed walking aids around the home, which included an extra stairrail and grab handles at the external door at the back. As time has passed, it has become increasingly difficult for her, especially with her recent traumatic surgeries. She has become weaker and more dependent on us as a family. Number 2, providing the correct environment for my 7-year-old son who suffers from sensory processing disorder and is on the lower end of the autistic spectrum. My son was diagnosed while he was at preschool, and the occupational therapist confirmed this, but unfortunately had no further suggestions for support. We therefore looked at private therapy to help him give him the best life possible and help him with his development as he grows older. Giving him the garden space in the room will be able to stimulate his sensory needs is what we need to ensure his well-being and his future needs are looked after. The proposed development would serve many needs, such as sensory stimulation, promoting physical activity, reducing behaviours of agitation and aggression, allowing meditation, reflection and stress release, inspiring
Sorry to
personal
interrupt,
accomplishment.
Mr. Damji, but you have 30 seconds left.
Right, no worries, thank you. I'll cut to the last paragraph. I'm an individual just looking to provide for my family and look to care for my mother in our home. This is our home and I would like it to remain as our home forever. I would be most grateful if you could take the family circumstances into consideration on judging my application. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Damji. Okay, if you remain there for a second. Okay, members, any questions at all from Mr. Damji? Councillor Iqbal, please.
Hi, Mr. Damji. Thank you very much for your presentation, and I apologise. You've been a victim of some inconsistencies. However, my question to you is, how long have you been living at this address? How long?
Through you, Chair, I've been living at this address all my life, so 37 years now.
Okay, Councillor Iqbal, do you follow on or not? No, Councillor Rush, please.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for your presentation, Mr. Damji. Could I just ask questions about your extension? Sorry to hear about your son's condition and your mother's condition. So in your report, you say you want the extension for another bedroom for your mother. That's correct, isn't it? Downstairs. And I take it that the playroom will be because of your son's condition. Is that right?
That's correct. Yes, it will be. We'll use it as a sensory room. Plus, he has given physical activities that we have to do with him every day. So, sort of exercises are called RMTI, rhythmic movements, that we have to do with him.
Also, in the report, you say you would like to have a garden for your son to play in. How much extra garden will there be when you've built the extension? How much extra garden will there be space left?
I don't know in regards to dimensions, but a lot more, because currently it's all block paving in my garden, so we'll install the actual grass in the garden for him to be able to play around in.
So is this extra land you want to buy then? Will the garden be part of that extra land?
Yes.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else got any questions? No, thank you very much, Mr. Damji. Okay, we'll move on then to questions for officers or legal officer. Anybody got any questions? No. Okay, then we'll move to debate. Who would like to? Councillor Hill, are you opening debate?
No, I was trying to ask a question and put my hand up, but it
Stay with questions then. Councillor Hill, your question.
Just a quick question to Mr. Harding about my previous question to Councillor Burbidge about the delineation of the land and the area that is proposed. Is it, whilst I understand, the red line is probably a couple of feet, isn't it? But is it pretty much within the areas that we're looking at in the report?
Mr. Harding, are you there? I think we've lost him, have we, Karen?
Yeah, it looks as though Nick's frozen, doesn't it?
I think he may have frozen.
Okay, he's gone off now by the looks of it. Can we just wait a minute for him? We'll just move on to the other question. We'll come back to you, Councillor.
Yeah, fine.
Councillor, are you looking to debate or did you have another question?
Debate.
Okay, we'll have to hold then. Okay, if we could just wait a few minutes, we'll just see if we can get Mr. Harding back on.
I'll just give him a call.
Thank you.
We don't have an answer from him at the moment. I can only suspect that he's on the phone.
I've spoken to Nick. He's going to be trying to join again. The internet went down for him.
The reason I'm asking, Chair, is it seems an odd shape, doesn't it? It just seems a bit strange that we've almost ignoring that little triangle to the top right, which it would appear to me to make more sense to include that. That's why I'm querying what land is or is not part of the purchase or potential purchase.
Okay. Well, while he's waiting to come back on it, is there any other questions before I move anything?
Oh, actually, can I? I could ask Mr. Damji, couldn't I? Because Mr. Damji would know what land he's actually buying and what he isn't buying.
Yes, certainly. Mr. Damji, would you like to come back with that?
Yeah, certainly. So the reason why we've not bought the land in front of the house is it's actually on a hill. So it's actually, it goes downwards. So we've just bought a rectangle that goes from the front of the house all the way to the back of my garden, the back gate of my garden. So it's literally just a rectangle.
I understand that, Mr. Damji, and thank you for clarifying that. And can you just clarify pretty much that red line that we see on our report?
Yes. Yeah, I wasn't allowed to go any further because of trees. Because if it involved a tree, they said that they're not able to let me buy the land.
That's fine. So thank you, Mr. Damji. Much appreciated. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Iqbal. Then to debate.
Thank you, Chair, and through you. It's me today, not Councillor Hiller. Right. Why I asked a question. I asked the question how long he had lived at the address, and it's 37 years. The reason why I asked that was whether was that a permanent house, or was it a temporary house, or was he just doing it for, just to get extension and move on? That actually answered my question, that he has been there for 37 years, and that shows that he's not going to move somewhere. So the extension he just wants it generally for his family. Now, the three issues that I've seen are that, and I heard from Councillor, Mr. Harding, are trees, loss of open space, physical construction on the area. Now, in terms of trees, it's not within the conservation area and no tree preservation order is required. So that's my response to that. In terms of open space, it's not used for any recreation purposes, and neither do I see that will be happening in the near future. However, it is used for antisocial behavior, and it is used for fly tipping. Then the third one, physical construction on the area. In response to that, the way I look at it, it's a terrace house, end terrace house, and there's a car park beyond it. So I don't see that would have any sort of overbearing effect, or it's out of character. So these are the 3 points the way I perceive him. And on these basis, I am going against the officer's recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you. I've got Mr. Harding back with your hand up. Mr. Harding.
Yeah, apologies for my disappearance. The Wi-Fi went down here at San Martin House. Apologies for that. The tree's not got a tree preservation order on it, and the reason why is that because it's a council-owned tree, we're deemed to be a responsible authority. So we don't, as a rule, and no authority generally does up and down the country, serve tree preservation orders on our own property. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, thank you for answering that. Okay, Councillor, I've got Councillor Hiller first.
Thank you, Chair. I think Councillor Iqbal summed up the situation succinctly and very accurately. Also his apology for what appears to have been a bit of a car crash from the get-go with this. It's unfortunate when you're dealing with different officers, dealing with different departments, services within Peterborough City Council, and I have to say what you've suffered thus far, Mr. Damji, is regrettable, certainly regrettable. I too am inclined to go against the officer's recommendation on this. I'm impressed by Mr. Damji's presentation. I think he makes some very, very fair points, and to be honest, I think the impact of this single story, I have to say, rather attractive extension on the locale, I think would be minimal, frankly. And I really am inclined to go against the officer's recommendation. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Heller, Councillor Rush.
Yes, my question is about the sale of the land. In the report, James Collingwood said that he would support the sale of the land. So could you tell me what the situation is? Is the sale of the land supported or is it not? That's from Nick Harding.
I can get him to ask, but it's not actually relevant. But go on,
isn't it?
Go on.
Yeah, through you, as the chairman rightly states, it's not a material consideration in the determination of the application. But very briefly, the way that the process works is that a member of the public approaches the council's property team and says, I'm interested in buying some of this council land. The property team undertakes some due diligence work, and provided that that's all satisfactory and the purchasers, content with the value that's assigned, so on and so forth, a provisional agreement to sell the land is entered into, but at that stage it's never completed because it's always made clear that the sale of the land is subject to the grant of planning permission. Okay.
Help, Councillor Rush. Did you have anything else?
No, that's fair. Yeah, I didn't realise it wasn't part of the planning application. It's just that it was in the report about the sale of the land. So I understand that now. Thank you very much, Nick, for that answer.
Thank you, Councillor Rush. Councillor Hogg.
I just wanted to sort of add my point of view. I think the other councillors have more or less said it all insofar as that I'm minded to go against officers' recommendations here. I think they've done, they've done their job to the letter, but I think that's the whole point of a committee is to look at the decision in the round and maybe flex what could be done within the rules. And I think it's a piece of land that's not particularly used for anything other than, as has previously been said, fly tipping and a bit of antisocial behaviour in terms of fly tipping, etc. It reduces the amount of maintenance that needs to be done on the estate by the city council, and it means that Mr. Damji is able to provide for his family in a way that clearly needs to be done. So yeah, I'm minded to approve the application and go against officers' recommendations.
Thank you, Councillor Hogg. Councillor Casey.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Actually, it's interesting as a ward councillor, these sorts of issues come up quite regularly where we have residents saying, what about this little bit of land here? And I know I've dealt with quite a few where I've recommended going to property services. And as members of the planning committee, we know that you're allowed to put a planning application in on someone else's garden. You can't necessarily build it because even if you don't own it. So I can see exactly how we've ended up where we are. I too am inclined to go against officers' recommendation because I see the role of this committee, as Councillor Hogg explained. We're here to look at the overall picture and come up with a decision. And I can see how we've got to where we are. In some ways, I'm happy with where we are because I can see the processes, but I can only apologise to Mr. Damji that we are where we are. But I'd like to see Mr. Damji smile. That's good to see. But actually, I am inclined to go against officers' recommendation on this one.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to enter debate? No? Oh, Councillor Warren.
When I initially looked at this application, I had serious questions about what use of the open land was, the purpose of development, and how this would impact the local area as I'm a local councillor. I feel that all my answers have been questioned satisfactorily by Mr. Damji and by the process. So I'm also going against the officer's recommendation and going to grant this application.
Councillor Warren. Anybody else wish to add to debate? Councillor Iqbal.
I'm happy to propose if there are any more questions, no debate.
Okay. Any further debate? No, so we have a proposal. We're going to come over to you, Councillor Iqbal, please, for your proposal.
Yes, thank you, Chair, and through you. My proposal is that we go against the officer's recommendation and they attach any relevant conditions they deem necessary. That's my proposal.
Pete to it. I'm going to go.
Thank you.
You were going to go every time.
Mr. Harden, I saw your hand go up. Did you have a question? Has he gone again?
I think he has. Yeah, the connection where he is not so good.
Okay, I think we can still carry on as we're in the middle of a proposal, can't we? I think it's probably clarity on the proposal. But
Mr. Chairman, could I make an observation? I expect Nick Harding was going to add that conditions or members should consider whether to attach conditions should they be willing to approve and also give reasons for that decision.
Yep, okay, fine. We'll go back to Councillor Iqbal then. Councillor Iqbal, did you want to attach any conditions at this stage, or should we go back to debate to get some if you want them?
I mean, my suggestion would be that if there are any relevant conditions which they deem necessary, they should be attached. And why I'm going against the officer's recommendation, that it doesn't have an overbearing effect, it's not out of character. And that's what I'm going to say.
Okay, fine. Right, okay, well, we've got a proposal then on the table. Have we got a seconder on that proposal? Councillor Hiller.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'm happy to support Councillor Iqbal's proposal regarding conditions. I was going to mention that before the officer mentioned it, but it is the impact on the tree, I think, is relevant, and I think we need officers to look at that and perhaps liaise with the applicant regarding any mitigation of the impact on that tree, and I'm happy to delegate that to officers. I'm sure Councillor Iqbal would be too. I can see him nodding there. Lots of open space, which was one of the other reasons for refusal, recommendation for refusal. I don't see that's relevant in this instance, Chair. So I'm happy to second that. That would be my proposal, Chair. Thank you.
Councillor Iqbal, are you happy with that?
Yes, I'm totally happy with that. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, committee, then we have a proposal and we have a seconder. We'll now move to the vote. For clarity again, I will ask each member.
Could I just ask, before we go to the vote, can we just get the take? Is Mr. Harding back? Is he happy with that?
I don't see him at the moment.
He's down.
Through you, Chairman, yes, I am back, but I only joined partway through what Councillor Hiller was saying, unfortunately.
Okay, well, then we'll go back and Councillor Iqbal for the proposal again, and then Councillor Hiller for your seconding. Is that okay? So we'll get it clear. Councillor Iqbal, please.
Yes, Mr. Harding, you could impose, I mean, what we just said is that if there are any relevant conditions where you want to impose in terms of trees, as Councillor Hiller said, which can be mitigated with the applicant, we want that condition to be part of the application, and whichever other conditions you think are relevant. As far as the open space is concerned, we're against that. It's not. I don't think that's an issue. The only issue we see is the tree, and if you could just mitigate with the applicant and come to some sort of agreement, we'll appreciate that. Unless Councillor Hiller wants to add anything else.
Well, I'm going to go back to Mr. Harding. Mr. Harding, are you happy with that? So effectively, you would be getting officers would be given the authority to act. Is that okay?
Yes, that's lovely. Thank you.
Good. Councillor Hill, are you okay with that?
Yes, I have nothing to add to Councillor Iqbal's proposal.
Perfect. Okay. So again, committee, I have a proposal and a seconder. So we'll go to the vote. For clarity, I'll ask each member in turn if they are for, against, or abstaining. Councillor Bond.
For.
Councillor Brown.
For.
Councillor Casey.
For.
Councillor Hiller,
4.
Councillor Hogg,
4.
Councillor Iqbal,
4.
Councillor Hussain,
4.
Councillor Jones,
4.
Councillor Rush,
4.
Councillor Warren,
4.
and myself, Councillor Harper. I am 4 too. So unless I'm mistaken, Karen, that's a unanimous decision.
Yes, that's correct, Chairman.
Okay, so unanimous decision then, so that application is agreed. Right, I'm now proposing we have a 10-minute break, everybody, and resume at 3:30. Everybody okay with that?
I am, Chair, but can I just check with Karen about my not being at the next item? Is it okay if I just delete my video? Is that okay?
So you're not taking part in the next item?
4.3.
You're not. So we can move you into a room, Councillor Hiller, for the 4.3, and then you can come back for the last item, 4.4. Are you happy with that?
Yes, more than happy. Thanks, Karen. Thank you,
Okay.
Chair. Sorry to interrupt you, Chair.
No problem. Karen, then obviously if you can remind me at the end of that one, if I forget to bring Councillor back in. Okay.
Of course, yes. Thank you.
Right. We'll see you at 3:30 then. Please don't go away. Please just turn your mic and your video off, and see you in 10 minutes. Thank you. Hi, Karen. Are we all back or not?
Yes, it looks like we're all back now, Chairman.
Okay. I can't see Councillor Hussain though at the moment. Give him a minute, please.
Councillor Hussein's video is on, Chris.
Yeah, I can't see him in it.
Oh, he's hiding.
I'll get one of my colleagues to give him a call.
If you would, please. Thank you. That, as if by magic. Okay, all there now? Yes? Yep. So we'll resume now. Thank you very much, everybody, for coming back. Okay, we're moving on to item 4.3, which relates to 45 Peterborough Road in Castor. Could I ask Stephen Chesney-Beals, please, to introduce the item? Stephen. You're on, I hate to say it, but you're on mute, Stephen.
Am I off mute now?
Yes, we've got you now. Thank you. Thank you, Stephen.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you very much indeed. I'm here today to ask committee to consider confirming a provisional tree preservation order. Just to make you aware, tree preservation orders are made provisional for 6 months only, at which time they then are considered for confirmation. The council's policy is, under its constitution, that if objections are received, then committee then have to consider those objections before the council confirms the TPO. So that's the reason today that we're considering the provisional TPO and the confirming of it. The main considerations are that the trees subject of the TPO, are they worthy of protection because of their public visual amenity? And also, is the TPO reasonable and justified in terms of the objections that have been received? And I'm sure you've got in your papers there both a copy of the tree preservation order and a copy of Mr. Huckle's objections. With regard to the making of the tree preservation order, it was made on the 15th of July, following planning applications on the site at 45 Peterborough Road, and in the interests of expediency, it was considered that tree preservation order was reasonable in the circumstances to protect those trees that were to the rear of number 45 Peterborough Road, and they consist of 11 individual trees and one group of trees. Can we go to thank you. The first slide there you'll see shows the trees to the rear garden of the property itself set back. The individual dots obviously are the trees, the individual trees, and then there's a long sausage shaped shape on that eastern boundary, which is G1. They are the trees that are protected. As I say, we have here 11 trees and one group. The consideration, as I say, was that it was considered that the trees would be affected by the proposed development of the site. And where the planning authority feels that it's expedient in the interests of amenity to make a tree preservation order, they can do so in these circumstances. And as I say, to begin with, it's about the public visual amenities. So if we look at this first PowerPoint presentation here, this is a view from the entrance to number 45 Peterborough Road, and it shows the trees as identified in the list there T1, which is the apple tree just behind the blue car there. And then G1 are the trees that sit behind the apple. And then as you move to the right, you move round and you're then seeing T5, 6. And then on the right, you see a much taller tree and one smaller tree to the left, that is T10 and T11. So that's the public view you get from the public footpath at the entrance to number 45 Peterborough Road. If we can go to the next slide. Now this is the other public view that you get from the Peterborough Road. And if you have a look on the plan to the right there, this is the second star. This is the star that is just where it says Milton Lane. And it looks across past the village hall. And again, you're seeing T1 in the foreground, followed by G1, which runs along that eastern boundary. And you're seeing then T2, T3 and T4. And again, as you look around to the centre of the site, you start to see then T10 and T11 is the very much taller tree on the right. So these are the two public views from Peterborough Road. And then if we can go to the third photograph, please. I have to apologise for the darkness that this appears. It is very dark. It wasn't dark in the original shot, but this is from Port Lane. Now, Port Lane is a public footpath. It is metalled. It is a surfaced road up to about where the star is, and then it becomes unmade. And it's a footpath that then joins the Neen Way, the long distance footpath. And again, as you look across diagonally to the corner of the property, that sort of western corner, you then see T11, T10, T9, T8. There is in fact T7 in there as well. It's not on the list, but it is one of those trees that you can see of the line of 4 before you get to the next dot, which is in fact T4. So these are the public visual, the viewing points that I considered when I looked at protecting the trees on this site. And again, this is you know, the primary reason for protecting trees is the public visual amenity that they have. And then obviously the second is the threat in terms of, in this case, proposed development that might have an effect on these trees. And I think that's as much as I'm able to give you at this moment, Chair.
Oh, right. Okay, Stephen. Thank you very much for that. We don't have anybody actually registered to speak, so we'll go straight to any questions for Stephen or any other officers, please. Anybody got anything? Stephen, can I just ask, when you say these are worth preserving, obviously I understand what you're saying. Have you actually been close up and inspected the trees close up then, or because at the moment we've just seen pictures from a distance?
Yes, no, I have visited each of the trees, and we have an assessment criteria where I would look at the trees in detail to ensure that they are healthy and safe and worthy of retention.
And in your opinion, they all are in that case? Yeah,
most certainly, yes.
Okay, thank you very much. Anybody else? No? Okay, we'll move straight to debate. Anybody want to debate this one, please? I'll open that then. From a point of view of what we've heard from Stephen, their officer, he's the expert, and obviously that we rely on him for his expertise. He's assured me that he's been on site, he's inspected these trees, and the trees are worthy of protection. Yes, the views is obviously something that's for you personally to consider, and the beauty of trees. And I think, from my point of view, it would be a terrible shame to lose such a lovely view, and I'm sure the villagers, the majority, would be the same. So, from my point of view, I would be looking to recommend this for approval. So, Councillor Casey.
Thank you, Chair. I have to say I do agree with that as a a statement, really. Just looking at those pictures, those trees, the removal of them would certainly have an impact on the public view from those standpoints. And they're not the sorts of trees that you see a lot, certainly in a lot of people. You don't see trees of that maturity and of that stature. And I believe it would be a shame to lose them. And I understand this is a temporary TPO for 6 months, and I think actually I'm inclined to agree with our chairman, and that this should be agreed.
Thank you, Councillor Casey. I've got you, sorry, Councillor Jones. It's all right, it's moving up the screen too fast. Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Chair. Not only, I wouldn't consider myself a tree expert, but they're beautiful and, dare I say, quite dramatic, and it would be a substantive loss for the area. So I would be inclined to retain them.
Thank you, Councillor Hogg.
Just echoing what other people have said, really. I can see nothing in this to go against the tree officer's recommendations, and I will heartily be approving of them.
Mr. Harding. Thank you, Councillor Hogg.
Thank you, Chairman. Just as a point of clarification, I think maybe Councillor Casey misunderstood what the tree officer was saying. When you first serve a tree preservation order, it's what's known as a provisional order, and that provisional order lasts for a period of 6 months. So if you were to confirm the tree preservation order, it would fall by the wayside. So what you're being asked to do is to confirm the order so that it basically lives on forever unless it is subsequently revoked for whatever reason. So you're giving permanence to the tree preservation order in your decision today.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thanks for the clarity.
Thank you, Nick.
Councillor Brown.
I agree with what Nick Harding says, that it wants to be a permanent fixture, really. The trees to stay as they are and stay as they are for forever.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. Anybody else wish to enter the debate? The risk of having to propose my own or give my own proposal. Would anybody like to give me a proposal on if debate's finished? Councillor Casey.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Mr. Harding, for that clarification. But I'd like to propose that we agree with the officer's recommendation and approve this TPO.
Thank you, Councillor Casey. Councillor Hogg, you seconding?
Yeah, happy to second that.
Thank you very much. Okay, members, we have a proposal and we have a seconder. So for clarity, we'll move to the vote. For clarity, I'll ask each member in turn if they're for, against, or abstaining. Councillor Bond.
For.
Councillor Brown.
For.
Councillor Casey.
For.
Councillor Hogg.
For.
Councillor Iqbal.
For.
Councillor Hussain.
For.
Councillor Jones.
For.
Councillor Rush.
For.
Councillor Warren.
For.
And myself, Councillor Harper, I am for too. So if you could just confirm, Karen, I believe that's unanimous.
Mr. Chairman.
Okay, so that's a unanimous decision. So the application for the TPO is agreed. Thank you very much. Thanks,
you,
Stephen. You can leave when you're ready, unless you want to stay, of course.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Stephen. Okay, we're moving on then to item 4.4, which is the local list update on conservation. And we have Daniel Worley to introduce the item. When you're ready, Daniel, please.
Thank you, Chairman. And through you, I would like to present our update to the local list. I'd like to point out to members that this is for your notification and comment. You can't technically adopt it, as you don't have legal powers to do so. But I kind of feel that is an important element that you should understand, and you should be able to have your views on it. Next slide, please. Oh, if you want those pictures, those pictures were a representative sample of some of the local list assets I wanted to put on. Okay, so let's start with the basics. So a non-heritage asset is kind of defined by Historical England as a heritage asset that is valued as a distinctive element of the local historic environment, or kind of in reality, it's a kind of local heritage asset that is...
Daniel, I do apologise coming in. Karen, is Councillor Hiller back on?
He is Chairman, yes.
Okay, Daniel, I do apologise for interrupting you, but obviously I thought we'd forgotten him and left him in a room. So, Daniel, please continue.
Thank you, Chairman. Karen. So, in effect, actually, local list assets are kind of high quality heritage assets which don't quite meet the threshold for statutory listing or for scheduling. Now, if we go back to the background of the local list in Peterborough, it was created as part of the local plan in 2012, although it did have an update in 2016. And the reason we're bringing these ones here today is for three different particular reasons. The first one is there's now an expectation that all non-heritage assets are included within the local list. This comes from the planning policy guidance, which has been updated earlier this year. And also, and so with that, it includes three distinctive elements, which I'll go on to in a minute. They are our existing Article 4s, there are recommendations from conservation area appraisals, and recommendations from the civil society, civic society, and also officers. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so what we're recommending to put on are 98 properties from our Article 4s. Examples include the Railway Cottage Link Road and Queen's Road, Fletton. Now, the reason these have been requested to put on is because in 2012, when the local list was created, the Article 4s were not placed on the list. Instead, they were given Article 4 protections. Now, the reason for this was because most of the assets in question were either terrace rows or rows of identical buildings, and it was considered that an Article 4 was a better way to protect them at the time. And to an extent they still are. However, because of the changes in government guidance, these articles should also form part of the local list. Second type of assets which I'm recommending to the list are from offices and civic society. Now, a large portion of these were consulted in 2016, but were never put forward for comment, and I'm putting them forward today. And also there's the 6 that were recommended from the civic society, which were consulted on last year and form part of that. Okay, and the last 18 are from recommendations from conservation area appraisals. Now, from 2016, conservation area appraisals all included recommendations for the local list, and as these were the only 4 conservation area appraisals which we have completed since that date, it is only these 4 which recommendations that we have consulted on and we're bringing forward today. Now, if you look at the bar chart, and it's probably quite unusual that you have a bar chart in a planning application, on the left is how many listed, so statutory listed, grade 1, grade 2, so on grade 2 listed buildings, and that's 928. And then the other one shows how many local list buildings we have, so 229 existing plus the 3 types that I'm recommending today. Now, if you have a look at the local list, you might notice that it's very heavily skewed towards the city centre and park. Now, this is a kind of this is a remnant of how when it was created in 2012, and obviously most of the villages aren't included on there. So the major gap between the how many local assets and statutory assets, which should be roughly about even, generally comes from there. And in time, we'd hope to bring more to committee for comment and note to bring that number up to roughly the same number of listed buildings. So to recap, I'm bringing forward with 143 recommendations to add to our local list for the comment and noting of committee.
Okay.
And there's some more examples.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Daniel. Members, do you have any questions at all for Daniel? Councillor Rush.
Yes, thank you, Daniel. Were all the these properties on this heritage assets list, were they informed that there was a consultation going on?
It depends on which ones. The Article 4s were not, because the Article 4 as direction is considered a higher degree of protection. Therefore, inclusion on the local list is lower protection than the Article 4s. Therefore, they were consulted. Therefore, under the Article 4, under the Article 4 notice, and so they weren't consulted. All the other ones were. So the ones there was a big chunk in 2016 they were consulted. Then when we did the Thornhall Conservation Area Appraisal, we consulted at the same time for those. And then beginning of last year, I believe, we did another consultation for the remainder, including the other 3 conservation area appraisals. So this, to an extent, is a bit of a tidying up exercise. So we've done a series of consultations and some for different elements, and we're bringing them all together for you here at committee.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Daniel, could I just ask, is there any sort of like weight, if something's identified to go on this list, is there any weight in the landlord or owner being or having to keep it in a reasonable state? I mean, what happens if it falls into disrepair? What happens?
No, and unfortunately, in my opinion, no, there isn't. What it comes about is under in the MPPF number 197. The effects of, let me get this right, the effect of an application on the significance of a non-designated heritage asset should be taken into account determining the application. Therefore, also under planning guidance, it says planning authorities should make clear and up-to-date information regarding non-designated heritage assets. So basically, the government guidance is we should have a local list, and that local list should be as complete as possible to fulfill our planning obligations. Now, as you saw from my kind of bar chart, we're quite a way short of a full survey. However, I'd still probably suggest that despite the kind of problems or lacking elements of our local list, it is one of the most thorough in the area that I know of. So although they don't have any specific protection, is a material consideration in planning applications and for the benefit of people applying. So we have a clear, understandable planning process. It's easier for them to be identified upfront in our local list, so they know full well when they apply for planning consent that these non-designated heritage assets will be taken in the planning balance.
Okay. Councillor Casey, thank you for that.
Thank you, Chair. Actually, I must admit, I really enjoyed looking at the documents, and it's really interesting seeing all the pictures of all the buildings. And really, I suppose it's a question about going forward and planning guidance going forward with all of the. I suppose we've had training on planning rules changing and planning law changing going forward. Are there any indications that would have any impact on this going forward?
No, I don't believe there kind of would be, because these will be taken into consideration of specific planning applications. So it'll be same as, say, the impact on trees, impact on kind of archaeology. It'd be a kind of consideration like that. In terms of, and I'm sure Nick could actually be better placed to answer me in this. In terms of the changes to kind of outline consent and stuff, there may be an impact on some of in non-designated heritage going forward, because obviously at the moment our criteria is very building focused, but Historic England, their criteria for the local heritage assets or local heritage assets is far more wide ranging. So so they suggest we should include things like in the landscape, for instance. Shall we take the old abandoned railways? There's something which in the future could go on the local list when hopefully we update our kind of criteria, and going forward things like that may have an impact on the change of planning process. But for members here today, with the kind of limited things we're putting on the list, I don't think it would have much impact. But I'm sure Nick may have better answer than me on that.
You want to add anything, Nick?
Just to add to what Daniel said, is that as part of the recent government consultation, they said that they were going to look at heritage assets in the context of ensuring that new development and alterations to those buildings weren't unnecessarily stymied by heritage regimes. But other than that broad statement, there was no clear detail over how they would facilitate that. I think that there's bound to continue to be a place for both the nationally listed and locally listed buildings, because it's all part and parcel of the sort of character and makeup of different parts of the country, different parts of towns, and the government's consultation document and national guidance on planning includes statements around preserving what's good about the character of areas. So I think they will have a place in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Nick. Anybody else?
I'd like to,
Yes.
it just occurred to me, the government is at the moment conducting or encouraging local authorities through Historic England to complete their local list. And they're actually doing some trial areas regarding completing their local list. So there is a clear kind of force from Historic England and the government that we as authorities have full local lists.
Thank you, Daniel. Councillor Hiller.
It's not a question, Chair. It's just basically a bit of commentary, agreeing with Nick's last statement, and also congratulating Daniel for what was a very interesting and informative address. So thank you, Daniel. It's rare, but it's certainly very exciting that we've got relatively young planning officers with such a passion and an interest in the subject of protecting what I guess is important to most of us, if not all of us. I just reiterating the local list is an important document. I've always considered it to be an important document. It's the primary route to protecting our notable and our historic assets that we have in our city. And our heritage and conservation team spend a huge amount of time and effort in its compilation. So it is to be taken seriously. I think it's great that we have input from different agencies as well, the civic society in particular, who are well crafted and educated in this type of thing. I live in a conservation village. A number of the properties and notable structures, if you will, around the area in the north rural villages are listed in this list. So, all your elbow, Daniel, and thank you very much indeed for what I personally found very, very interesting indeed. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Anybody else wish to join in? No. Okay, I can see no further hands going up. So we're being asked as a committee to note the outcome of the public consultation on the inclusions to the local list of heritage assets within Peterborough. We are further asked to support the inclusion of the proposed heritage assets within the local list of heritage assets within Peterborough, and also to support the inclusion of the existing Article 4 properties within the local list of heritage assets within Peterborough. If anybody doesn't agree to that, would you please raise your hand? I see no hands, so in that case, the recommendations are approved. Daniel, thank you very much for your input in that. You may leave the meeting when you're ready.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you, members.
Just for the sake of democracy, Councillor Hussain had his hand up.
Oh, did he? Blimey, it doesn't show on mine. Councillor Hussain?
Physically up.
Oh, no, I won't see that. So I can only see the
just waving goodbye.
Oh yeah, I accidentally, yeah.
Okay, then fine. Right, okay, so that actually would conclude the meeting. Could I say thank you very much to you members and bring the meeting to a close. I'd like to add my thanks to those who are watching us and on the YouTube channel. As it's the last one of the year, it's certainly been a very challenging year, to say the least, and I know these challenges will continue for quite a while longer yet. But I would like to thank you as members of this committee, everyone involved in the planning department, legal services, highways, and Democratic Services, and of course the host of other officers that have helped support the department and us right the way through the year. Thank you very much for your dedication and hard work through such difficult times. May I wish you and your families a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Take care of yourself, keep well, and stay safe.
And I wish everybody a Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to you
All
all.
the best.
Yeah.
Keep safe. See you in the new year now.